Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Jaime Fuego here.
Here to do a Patreon review. This is a special review request from McKenna Noel, a patron that has been a longtime fan of the show, actually, and a longtime friend as well. We actually met her a little over a year ago, so...
Yeah, Ms. Bond is awesome.
Indeed. So McKenna reached out and said that she wanted us to, at long last, finally experience for our very selves, for the first time, the controversial and almost at this point mythological film, a Serbian film.
She has been petitioning this movie to us collectively and me directly also, just telling me you have to, don't be a pussy, watch this movie. And I'm just like, what?
Well, not only that, but our very own, our past very own Morgan, early in the show, kept espousing the fact that she watched it and that it was the most messed up thing she'd ever seen.
And our buddy Monty Yazzie, who is the director of the International Horror Sci-Fi Film Festival, tried to convince me at one point the massive merit of this film. And of course, since I'd read so many people denouncing it as, trash and snuff and all these different things, I kind of bought into that side of the hype. I really, really did. And I think you and I have kind of a different opinion at this point.
Indeed we do. So we'll get into this like we normally do, our overall thoughts, our thoughts on the story, the acting, the effects, all that good stuff in turn. But yeah, I will say that, again, it had reached mythological proportions for me. I had heard about a scene that ended up not being as big a deal as everyone made it out to be.
It was trimmed, though.
Yeah, it definitely, this had to have been trimmed because this was not as disturbing as we thought it was going to be, or maybe we're just desensitized.
I think you were just left to suggestion that it was, and then when you see... who else shows them.
Anyway.
We can't really say, but...
So overall, though, I will say that the movie, in spite of its reputation of being, god-awful or whatever, or just the most disturbing thing, it is definitely disturbing, but I've seen so much horror at this point, and just, I guess, have become desensitized that it wasn't that disturbing to me. We definitely saw more dong than I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Not since Creed
Ever?
2.
Really? No, even more than that, for sure.
Yeah.
But overall, dong aside, I thought this was a much, much better movie than I ever thought it was going to be. I was prepared for like an 8mm style, almost grindhousey, gritty, gross, looks like a snuff film situation. And no, this was a very polished, very well shot, very well acted, cinematic movie. It really, really was. Yes, it had to deal with darker, more adult stuff than we normally get in mainstream media, but it's a Serbian movie. It's not an American film, so it definitely leans into that. So but overall, I am surprised at how much I enjoyed this film.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed with this movie. I thought it was going to be schlock, total trash, and we've seen so much terribly made, badly acted, low-budget horror with poor effects and all these different things, but I feel like everything about the approach of this, from the gore when we got it to the tremendous acting and just the humanity we felt from the lead especially. I was very impressed with his performance, and with pretty much everybody else in this movie. I don't think that there was, aside from some of the one-note thuggy type guys associated with the film producer, but they were playing as they were written. I didn't think there were any weak links in the acting.
Agreed.
And it honestly made me think, although I don't necessarily know if you would have understood some of the subtext they were going for if not for one extensive monologue about halfway through the movie. But aside from that, it's just a grisly look at the desensitization that happens in the industry of pornography, in my opinion, and just the downward spiral some people can find themselves in as victims of desperation and just clawing to survive after you get embroiled in something where you're maybe way over your head. So.
Well, and certain producers desire to constantly push the envelope.
And we've heard about that from regular films. The regular films in the horror, the dramatic, or whatever. Hell, man, even Last Tango in Paris, there's all kinds of stuff about the director of that film, just pushing the actress in it, along with oh goodness, I can't think of the name of the main. He's a celebrated actor. He was in The Godfather. Main older guy. bottom line, it happens.
Robert Duvall?
No, not Robert.
Godfather.
the main patriarch of the Godfather family. Anyway,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, about how he, unbeknownst to the actress he was starring in, forced himself upon her, and that was like the plan, and she wasn't aware of the fact that some of the sex stuff was going to be real. Some stuff about a stick of butter, terrible. Also, Blue is the Warmest Color is another one where it's notorious for the director pushing the two French actresses to make the sex scenes so much more than they were told ahead of time that they were going to be. And so, not just in movies like this, but, you know, stuff, the envelope is pushed, and sometimes actors, even if they don't feel up to it, for, you know, they think of the sake of their career and advancement and all these other things, they just go with it. Kind of the situation if we're going to hit the story that this guy found himself in.
Yeah, so he is a not quite retired porn actor, but an actor that tries not to do it anymore because he's bored of it, he's tired of it, but he's got a wife and a kid, and the wife is understanding, I guess, apparently, because she allows him
into it.
Yeah, she's a little into it, and but nonetheless, he gets sort of drawn back into the game.
An old co-star.
From an old co-star, exactly, who has since expanded her own horizons within the genre, but still, so he gets drawn in, and he's offered a ridiculous sum of money to take part in a film that he knows nothing about, and he knows not who's going to be in it, and all he knows is what he's going to be paid, and he gets taken where he needs to go. And you know, at first he's a little skeptical, but he goes with it because of the sum of money, and then it starts to be things like, you know, having to beat a woman and perform in front of a child, and it's like, that's pretty much the tamest of everything, so that's their starting point.
That scratches the surface, just so you know that this could very easily be a slippery slope.
Yeah, exactly. A very, kind of sticky slope, but nonetheless.
That too. But a smooth, glidey slope.
But yeah, so as he dives further and further into the rabbit hole,
I like the reference, it's perfectly befitting.
He starts to see that things are not quite kosher, and he tries to walk out. And this is about the halfway point, and I'm not going to spoil what happens after that, but just rest assured that this is a group of people that you can't just walk out on their project.
Yeah, and at that point the movie turns into kind of a mystery.
A mystery,
of sorts,
because he loses time.
Yeah, the second half of the film, actually, I was not expecting it to frame it in the manner in which that it did, and it really impressed me. That
was super impressive.
Yeah, the segue in the storytelling at that point, and especially we'll get into, you know, effects and just, you know, cinematography or whatever, but the way they gave distinction to the flashbacks and, you know, jumping back to present time and stuff, I thought was incredibly well done, and it pushed the narrative. And this was not a movie that I was expecting to have as deep and just, I mean, emotionally heart-wrenching of a story as it ended up being for me. I mean, the story really, I hate to use a term with something like this that hit me in the feels, but I really genuinely did. I felt very much for this main character, for Milos. I felt so much for him, his family, and just the struggle that he kind of had with, you know, everything from his old life to his new life, to sexual desires, to what is reasonable and okay. And I think maybe that is a struggle that a lot of people deal with, because there's, you know, there's a deep, dark, you know, if I'm going to go into, you know, my upbringing religiously, you know, we are often told that, you know, there is evil at the heart of man as opposed to good, and that internal struggle of that. And so just trying to use your intellect not to give in to these terrible desires at times, and trying to be a better person. And this guy has a dark side, and you can tell he's trying to keep it at bay. He's drinking, he's smoking, he still thinks a lot about, you know, the previous life, but you can kind of tell that he doesn't want a part of it anymore, but he is still drawn to it. It's that addictive nature of, you know, just having an addictive aspect, I guess. And
here's the thing, this is kind of like if you mixed Saw with Boogie Nights.
Yeah. Big time. Very, very good call, dude.
You know what I mean? And
very much so.
And that's the thing. Like, this is no worse than any given Saw movie.
No.
Effects-wise.
No.
But, gruesome-wise. But it deals in a much more taboo area. A bunch of taboo areas.
I feel
the
much
thing.
less of a popcorn approach.
Right, yeah.
You know?
This is a much, you know, it deals in heavily tabooed areas, and that's And I'm not trying to excuse it like these things shouldn't be taboo. No, they're taboo for a reason.
And that's why they have the stigmas.
But that was the point of the movie. Like, this wasn't trying to just be shock value. This was, I see what McKenna was saying. I see what other people are saying. It has a purpose. Everything that's there has a purpose. All of the grotesqueness and the evil that you see, it's just a different kind of evil than we see. It's not a dude in a pig mask torturing someone in front of you. Yeah. It's a group of producers tricking you into doing awful shit. And it's like, that's just as terrifying, but in a different way. I actually have a lot of respect for this movie, as dark as it is. Like, and I feel a little bit like, I don't want to come off like, man, I really like this movie and I love the stuff that was in it. I would recommend everybody would watch it. Man, I can't wait to get back to it once the crew leaves.
It actually it unlocked a part within me that I was unaware existed.
Oh boy, no, it's not that at all. It's, I see what the filmmaker was going for, because it was done astoundingly well. Like, it really was just a very accomplished film. The cinematography, let's segue into that. We'll get back to that. Well, we already said we love the acting, but
yeah, I mean, we don't have to really hit that too much more.
The main guy had to shoulder a lot, and he did.
He did.
The wife had to play different layers, and she did a good job.
He was such a great lead, though, dude, especially, like, some of the emotive nature that he put forth, where he's kind of trying to piece together some things in the second half of the movie. Like, heart-wrenching, man. And also, like, he showed that dark side and that grisly nature also too. And I mean, even the scene where the whole monologue where you're kind of heavy-handed with the subtext and, you know, the whole victim aspect and whatnot. You and I both looked at each other and we're like, wow, this producer's he's a really good actor. The producer
was really good.
Yeah. And he did, despite his weird clouded judgment to some strange sick degree, even if you don't agree with his mentality and approach, you kind of understood how he got to that end. You know?
Yeah, I agree, and his acting, the producer's acting was, it lent credibility to it. It wasn't over the top, like it wasn't Orgasmo level producer, but it was
Orgasmo.
But it was he was very believable, and he was he was confident in what he was doing.
Isn't that the most scary villains?
Yes.
Is the ones that believe so deeply in what they're doing being right. That is the scariest sort of villain.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And he has that sort of sleazy charisma, you know, so it works really well. He was able to convince
our star.
Yeah, exactly.
I think money had a lot to do with it, but nonetheless.
So yeah, the acting was all great. The brother was a little frustrating, but that was the role he was meant to play.
Exactly.
But yeah, so moving back into the cinematography though, it was so accomplished. Again, it felt like truly it felt like a movie that would have been released in the theaters had it not been for the actual subject matter. 100%. Like they did a really good job with it.
In Serbia, wasn't it? And in
I didn't know.
Various other countries too, in Europe. So
it is a lot, but it's done so well. Like it's crazy. The cinematography again. It's disturbing when it needs to be. It's in tight and up close when it needs to be.
Boy, is it ever.
No, I meant on faces, but that too.
Well, faces doing other things, you know?
Yeah, well, there's a combination of things that we get close-ups on. And there is, I will say this, there is the portrayal of something that I have heard joked about for the last 15 years as a boy. Like, if someone was going to be so angry he was going to do this to you. I had kids in sports that would say, I'm gonna...
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh my God.
And we saw that actually happen, and when I saw, I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this right now, but it was like, it was so...
It was... I think that was
it was kind of satisfying.
I think that was the most graphic scene in the entire.
I think it was too.
Personally,
I think it absolutely was.
More so than the other two notorious scenes that I had heard whisperings about, but didn't know when and if and in what context.
One was definitely more illusion than actual portrayal,
and makes me wonder if there was like an actual image you see in
that was chopped,
uncut version.
Like we watched the 103-minute one. I saw that some people were saying there was a 104-minute version. The 104-minute one is the unrated one, but this one says unrated, and I don't know if just 1 minute would make that much of a difference, but if it's just a shot or two, it might.
A couple shots, it would
I agree.
Disturb so much more.
But
I don't know if I need to see those shots though. Because
I don't know if I need to either. We got the point.
Yeah, and I was even saying earlier, you know, that sometimes just insinuating and implying is that much more effective than actually seeing the visceral nature of it, or at least like where they just like thumb it in your face, you know, as opposed to just a couple quick shots and stuff like that. I got the point. Okay, and the point is often the suggestion of it is even more disturbing than. I mean, it's almost like when you get a quick glimpse of a monster as opposed to seeing it right there, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't look quite as cool as I thought it would.
Yeah.
Which, you know, different context, obviously, but I feel like there's some similar comparisons. But dude, the cinematography, I even pointed out to you a couple times, like some of the shots when they were at this like mansion of this producer, just the overlook of the city and the framing of the flowers on this deck where they're drinking and everything. I mean, this was not low budget schlock.
No.
You know, this was a very slick, stylistic film in approach, in appearance, and in editing. I mean, some of those quick flash edits they started doing in the second
editing
half.
was well done. The way they had to edit the second half of the movie. The second half of the movie was a little bit Memento, except in forward, you know. And then also the sound editing was good, but the production design, I thought the set design on all the places that he had to go, the fact that it was like kind of spotlit areas,
but also contrasted with like, you know, just the gloomy downtrodden like orphanages and, you know, all these other sets and strange places that they had. They showed, I think, the dichotomy of Serbia, I'm presuming, where there's probably a massive just divide between those rich and power and then the victims living in the filth and the destruction and stuff like that in the aftermath of so much conflict and stuff. And yeah, I can see why people analyze this film to the degree that they do, and I can also see why some people just take a passing glance and immediately denounce. I can see both perspectives, but man, I'm glad we finally watched this.
I am too. So lastly,
I
let's
never
hit the
believed
effects.
I would have said that.
We got to hit the effects real quick. There was I had forgotten we were watching a horror movie until the second half started.
Yeah.
Honestly, until we got our first gore effect, and I was like, oh, that's right, this is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And my God, did it turn into it. Yeah. And there was gore where appropriate and kind of over the top, but not like over the top like
and only
Kill Bill style.
And
but
only
like,
sprinkled throughout just a couple scenes, honestly. You know?
But so effective when we got it. So it was good. It was good because it was gore as punctuation rather than gore for gore's sake.
Yeah, which is what the Saws and the Hostels inevitably turn into, because I don't really see as much artistic merit beyond the gore in both of those franchises.
Right.
Sorry to say. This did genuinely have something more behind it, and once again, I really feel like I'm eating my words. But
yeah, a little bit. Well, I mean, we never really said it was a bad movie because we just never watched it.
Yeah, how could we have known?
I'm eating my thoughts. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. yeah. Well, I mean, just the words of where I was like, I would never watch a movie that entails some of the things that I've heard people whisper are in this. And so, yeah, but I'd stand corrected. This movie did genuinely impress me. I don't know if I recommend everybody watching it, but I'm glad that I finally did. And compared to a lot of those other films, I still haven't watched Martyrs, but there's this short list of films where, and they're mostly European films and, you know, films from Mexico and South America and stuff like that. I know Baskin is on there, aforementioned We Are the Flesh that we talked about in the commentary, Martyrs, and then this one, and there's maybe one or two others, but this one I think might be the best and the one that maybe gets its reputation a little more unfairly, possibly.
I will echo what someone said on Facebook when we announced we were going to do this, and that was someone said that if you can handle Human Centipede 2, you can handle this. And I think Human Centipede 2 and 3, but especially 2,
I haven't seen any of them.
it's pretty rough, and I kind of agree with that sentiment. Like, this isn't as bad as it's mythologically gotten.
Yeah, but I would hope that this had a lot more to say than the Human Centipede movies, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's way better. Way better, for sure. But as far as the disturbing material is what I'm saying.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's going to do it, guys.
Yeah.
We're actually glad we watched a Serbian film. I'm actually glad I own it because it's not one I'm going to go back to very often, but it is one that I'd happily pass to a friend to borrow to say, hey, give this a go. Just to broaden your horizons a little bit, and trust me, it's actually a really good movie. So
yeah, it really is.
So there you go, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks again to McKenna, our patron, for requesting this for this month.
Oh,
Make sure,
finally got us.
Make sure you click that link in the description box down below to become a patron. Then you can control our content as well. Make us watch something else we haven't seen that's amazing that we've had a bad thought about for a long time. So let's continue this trend with good ones. So
yes.
Thanks again for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime, Fuego.
And remember, Stay scared.